military law expert Brian Bouffard is going to be joining us. We've appointed this guy to look into the circumstances surrounding the capture of Bowe Bergdahl. Now, this guy is saying is going to be incredibly political just in the investigation, which, of course, it shouldn't be that way in an investigation, but we know it's going to be. We're going to ask this guy, how do you defend him? If you're representing Bowe Bergdahl, how do you defend him? Also, we're going to ask, if you were trying to prosecute Bowe Bergdahl, what would be your tact? Excellent guest. Want to welcome into the show special guest Brian Bouffard. He is a former Navy lieutenant commander and JAG officer who defends military members in court-martial cases worldwide. Wanted to get his opinion. We now have somebody appointed to investigate the circumstances surrounding Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl's disappearance and abduction by the Taliban. Brian, welcome into the show. How are you today?
Doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad you could be here. It's kind of interesting because we know already, as we have watched this unfold in the media, it has already become very political, something we thought was a cool thing. Hey, we're bringing one of our kids home. It immediately got nasty. We've already convicted the guy. He's guilty as far as we're concerned. It's like Wolf Blitzer is the judge on this. Anderson Cooper is the bailiff, and Bill O'Reilly is the stenographer in this case. But your contention is that even the investigation, now that we've appointed an investigator, the investigation, you think, could be kind of political. How so and how come?
The repatriation of Sergeant Bergdahl has been heavily politicized at this point by the White House before really seeing any of the facts. And that's why I would just sort of caution, everybody, including your listeners, tap the brakes on saying this guy's guilty or even saying that this guy's, definitely innocent. We just don't know. It's, at least in my mind, a little bit similar to the fury that everybody felt over Richard Jewell, who was alleged to be the Olympic Park bomber. He was crucified in the media. It turns out that he was completely innocent. So I would just say let's stand by and wait until the investigation is done before we rush to judgment.
And I think here's the thing, is so far from what we have heard, I shouldn't say evidence, but from what we have heard, it seems overwhelming. This guy walked away from his post. His emails indicated he was interested perhaps in what the other side was doing. And this is America. Our whole system is based on, hey, you're innocent until proven guilty. But that's not what's been said in the media. And same thing on Facebook. Everybody has convicted this guy, called him a POS, so on and so forth. Now, let me ask you this. And since you specialize in handling court-martial cases worldwide, and that's not what this is. This is an investigation into how he disappeared. If you were defending the guy, with what we know right now, how would you defend him?
The first thing I would have done, assuming that I was hired on early, it's always wise, if you're gonna need a lawyer, you pretty much have an idea early enough to where you should get somebody in working on your case. But a competent lawyer hired at the right time would have been working on getting him an immunity agreement. He knows a lot of information that the government wants. For the government to agree in writing, all right, well, we're not going to prosecute you, that's done, fairly frequently, and I think that this situation seems to kind of cry out for that.
Right, and if, let's say, you were prosecuting the guy, again, with what we know now, what's your tact in trying to prosecute him?
Well, with what we know now, or at least what we think we know, we've got some pretty good evidence at this point from, not from the White House and not from Congress or people just kind of speculating, but we actually have actual evidence from people there on the ground with him in 2009, people who served with him and people who can give, I think, probably very credible testimony about the circumstances of his departure, leaving his weapon, leaving his body armor. It does seem to suggest that when Sergeant Bergdahl, or then PFC Bergdahl, left, that he had the intent to remain away permanently. In other words, not intending to come back at some point. And if the government can prove that intent to remain away permanently, then they can prove desertion instead of just merely AWOL. And in time of war, desertion is obviously an extremely serious offense, potentially carries the death penalty.
Brian Bouffard, former Navy Lieutenant Commander, JAG officer, JAGdefender.com. So how is it going to be? And here's the thing I'm interested in knowing. Obviously, we've already taken our political stances on this. We, for the most part, it seems like most of America has convicted the guy without hearing the evidence presented in a court of law. But there's somebody who has been appointed now to investigate the circumstances surrounding his disappearance. And the question I want to ask, we're going to have to do traffic first, but if you can hold on for a minute,
sure.
I want to bring you back. And the question is, would there be an investigation either way? I want you to answer that question. We will do that next. Right now, 4:45. Sean Bell has traffic on the 5s.
Yeah, Brandon, no new accidents. It looks like
News Radio 1620. Pensacola right now. My name is Brendan, our guest. We're chatting with her right now. Pretty cool conversation. Brian Bouffard, former Navy Lieutenant Commander and JAG officer. He defends military members in court-martial cases worldwide. The Army, they've appointed somebody to have an investigation regarding Bowe Bergdahl's departure from base. And Brian, I want to continue with our conversation.
Sure.
Would there be, I mean, under normal circumstances, somebody just, let's say, a POW, would there be an investigation, or is it because the media has jumped on the idea that this guy potentially intentionally abandoned post? Is that the only reason that there's going to be an investigation, or would this be done anyway?
No, not at all. This is the kind of thing that is routinely done. Okay. The Army calls it what's called a 15-6 investigation. And the thing to realize about that is it is not by its terms a criminal investigation necessarily, but it is designed to be a very open-ended, fact-finding investigation about, just trying to determine what happened with any kind of a serious incident. And they might do a 15-6 investigation. For example, something mundane, somebody's driving a government vehicle and they get into an accident. Well, there's going to be an investigation done on that to just determine, what the facts were. And sometimes, as may end up being the case here, some misconduct is identified, and then that information is referred to the person's commander for potential disciplinary action.
Now, as somebody who represents people in the military and as an attorney, and you have watched this whole thing unfold, are you able to offer your opinions on the way media has handled this and the information that we know thus far, most of it negative about him?
Well, and you're right. It is mostly negative at this point. And again, that doesn't, completely or even partially, decide the issue. But I think the media has a job to do that is different from the job that the legal system does, and that's that's okay. That's by design. The fact that we are innocent until proven guilty, that is a legal concept, not a court of public opinion concept. The only thing that I sometimes wish were different about the way the media handles something like this is there oftentimes is not a sufficient view towards the possibility that, we may be wrong about this. Again, kind of in the Olympic Park bombing in Atlanta, it's so easy to get information that looks bad and just assume that everything is bad. I can't tell you whether that's true in this case or not, because I just don't know. We're all having to speculate at this point.
And it's like Casey Anthony. We all were pretty sure she did it, but turns out she didn't do it.
Yeah, or you can even kind of bring up the OJ situation.
Yeah. All right. Brian Bouffard, the guy he's a former Navy lieutenant, JAG officer, JAGdefender.com. It'd be interesting to see how this whole story continues to unfold. And I appreciate you coming on the show today. I know you've been busy recently. Glad to have your time on in Penscola, Florida.
My pleasure, Brandon. Thank you so much.